My name is Carla Croca. I am one of the college counselors here at Columbus Academy. I'm joined by a whole team of wonderful people that you're going to see on a slide or two. And today this is all about college athletic recruiting. And this is a joint presentation between college counseling and our athletics department. So just before we get started, taking a little bit of a poll in the room, if you are the parent of a current 9th grader, can you raise your hand? Fantastic. How about sophomore, 10th grader? Great. 11th grader? Fantastic. Any middle school parent? Okay, yeah, that's all right, Robin. I'm raising hand. Wonderful. Well, welcome to all of you. This will be kind of our agenda for the day, but to get started, as promised, here is kind of what we think of as your home team. These are all the folks that will be working with you, or some of the folks that will be working with you throughout the college counseling process, and then, of course, through the athletic recruiting process. It's important that you understand that college counseling and the athletics department, we're super connected. We do a lot of work together. And we're super connected, especially when it comes to the athletic recruiting process. We have lots of meetings together, actually on a monthly basis. We're always kind of talking about the changes in the marketplace and what's happening in the world of college athletics. I do want to throw a little shout out today. We're joined by a couple of different coaches here. In the room, we have Coach Robin Miller, who coaches our football team, who's just coming off of an amazing season, so congrats to you and your team. And then we have Coach Preston Everlin, who is the head boys and girls varsity tennis coach. He's coming off a great girls season, so that's all very, very exciting. And they're going to kind of give you some insight into how recruiting works in particular sports. A couple of things we want to start off with is we've kind of learned a lot over the years through this process, but we want you to know that this is a lot of work. But the learned part is that there's great payoffs here with this. We will talk with you today about the shifting landscapes, educate you on the process as we know it, be as transparent as possible in all of the work that we do with you throughout this process. And so to get us started, I'm going to pass it off to Jason, who's going to talk with you about his kind of experience with athletic recruiting and some of the values he sees in it.
Again, I'm Jason Singleton, athletic director. This is my 6th year here, and I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I played sports. I played baseball, football, and basketball, 3 sports. Started off at a small Catholic school and started playing basketball was my last sport. And I just went out for the basketball team, so all my friends were going out, and that was in the 5th grade. Had a lot of fun. I wasn't that good, and I just was pretty athletic, kept getting better and better. And then in the 7th grade, I had my first dunk in the game. And after I had my first dunk, every high school wanted me. And then my 8th grade year, I got my first letter from Michigan State. Izzo was assistant coach at the time, and he was recruiting me. And I ended up going to Ohio State. I played for 4 years as captain, went to the Final Four, and then I ended up playing professionally. I played overseas, so mostly in Australia. Had a real short stint with the Phoenix Suns, and just played a lot basketball, jumping around different places. But my recruiting was at a really high level, and I was able to be recruited by every school in the country, with the exception of North Carolina, Duke, and Kentucky. Those are the 3 schools that recruited me at all. But I played at a high level, and I was recruited at a high level. But it was all because I was, doing things like dunking in the 7th grade, and my path was a lot different. And things are so different now. Every year, the landscape changes. Every year, there's new rules. They're paying kids now. They can transfer as many times as they want. So the landscape is just totally different. But athletics has been really good to me, and that's why I'm working in athletics now. And for your kids to be able to go on to college and play, these are some of the things that we've noticed are benefits for kids being student athletes in college. And definitely the leadership development and Lifetime Fitness, whether you're playing golf or basketball or tennis, it's usually a sport that you can play your entire life. And the balance with athletics. A lot of the kids have to balance studying, they have to balance their social life, they have to balance their friends, they have to balance studying, and it makes them a better student. And then the social adjustment. Most kids will go to a college that from out of state or somewhere they've never been and don't have any friends. Going into college as a student athlete, you already have a friend group, you already have a built-in fraternity, and that is something that helps you with your adjustment to college. Exposure experiences. For me playing at Ohio State, I was able to go to South Africa, Italy. I've been pretty much to Spain, Portugal, all because of basketball. So it's taken me all over the world and provides lots of exposure. And then the last bullet here, it can be a great recruitment hook for admissions. There's some schools you may be able to get in, and it can help you by playing sports. Going to a very high academic school, they have to recruit kids with really good grades and high academic kids. So if you have a kid who can play a sport and they have high academics, they'll open so many more doors for you. So those are just some things, and I think it's very, very important. Again, the landscape is changing, and one thing you're going to learn throughout this presentation is you're going to have to work really hard. You have to do a lot of work, and coaches are not just going to show up at your front door. You have to do a lot of the legwork. You get to do research, you get to understand the sport or sports that you're in, and understand how the recruiting process goes. So we have a lot to cover, and I want to bring up Jackie DeMarco.
Good morning, I'm Jackie DeMarco. I'm Assistant Athletics Director here, and I also coach varsity field hockey. Before coming here, I spent 14 years coaching at Division III and Division I in field hockey. And so, like Jason said, even since then, the landscape has changed a lot. I've been here for 4 years. But these are all of the basics of participating in college in sports. So there's a lot of different avenues that you can take. The most space that our kids go to is usually in Division III, but we also have kids that go Division I. Usually those two divisions are the ones that we see our students go on to play in. I did put a little handout on each table. If you need more, I can give more as well. That kind of just explains more so the differences between the three divisions. Division III is the largest division in the NCAA, but I also don't want to forget to mention that there are MAIA schools, which is a different governing body of athletics in college. It's very small, but there are opportunities there. And then at the college that your child goes to, the intramural and club sports are also a great opportunity to stay involved and stay in athletics. And then we also have junior colleges. Those are usually like a 2-year program and then get you to a 4-year college. There is the NCAA eligibility portal. That is important for Division I and II in receiving any kind of athletic aid, but also you just have to be in the eligibility portal for that. And as Jason said, there's a transfer portal that started mostly, it boomed through COVID. The transfer rules changed. You didn't have to sit out. You got to go in and just pick people in and out. Doesn't happen a whole lot. I feel like it's slowing down a little bit more with kids transferring a lot more, but you will see it in if you're a college football fan, you'll see that start to boom up a little bit more in the Division I area. I did want to bring this slide up again. We had something similar to this last year. There was something that changed in Division I. NCAA was sued last year through a lot of different things, but because of that, there was a settlement that came out of it, and they changed the roster. The old scholarship limit, instead, they just said, we're going to do away with the scholarship limit for each sport, and we're going to have a roster limit instead. And so because of that, it inflates the numbers to think that there's potential scholarships for that, because they said, okay, here schools, you handle it. And in that sense, they said, okay, so now there was a scholarship limit, so if we can look at lacrosse, okay? Women's lacrosse, the scholarship limit was 12, and that's 12 full scholarships, and those are usually spread out throughout the roster, but there was no roster limit. So the roster, there were some walk-ons, you know, they were at maybe 30, 38, maybe 40, 45, and they could parcel those scholarships out throughout the year. Well, now the NCAA said, no, we're just going to give you a roster limit, and you can, all 48 of those kids can be on scholarship. Schools, you handle it. So that has caused a lot of just disruption within Division I and seeing if that could change. The other thing that's happened, like for instance, like it looks like for football, they have 85 old scholarships. Now football teams usually carry more than 105 kids on them. Now they can't. So that's something that we're seeing. This is Division I. Hasn't super trickled down into the other divisions yet, but we're seeing what that might look like. So the key points mostly here is most schools aren't going to be able to fully fund these new scholarship limits. And it's more important than ever to do your research, see what they're doing with that. A lot of things that have also happened is like the schools can decide where those additional funds could go, and they're not necessarily going to all the sports that we in this room really like. So this is a NCAA Division I and II, the eligibility center. This is what it looks like. You'll know if you're looking at Division I and II, and that's a space for you. You'll know it's done when they ask you for a credit card. In college counseling, we'll get an alert that you are in there, your transcripts have to be uploaded into that. These are our current alums playing at the Division I level. On average, so far, like of the 4 years, there's about 13% of our graduating class that's playing that continues to play a sport in college. And again, like I said earlier, the vast majority of our students that are playing in college are actually at the Division III level, and that we have here just looking at the sports that our students are participating in, and then the different colleges and universities that they're at.
Hi everyone, I'm Darnell Freewood and I am Director of College Counseling, and thank you so much for being here today, and I hope you've given some great information. And what I want to talk about a little bit is your parent role in some of this, and really dig into what you all should know, since this is a parent presentation, and to know that later today we are going to have a presentation for students who are interested in Common Hour. And I want to take you in a big picture way to think about the word perspective. So I think everybody knows the story of Michael Jordan not making the basketball team early in high school, and then we all know what happened there. So that was one coach's perspective on him at that moment. And that is certainly an example of something that can happen, and we see the success story of that. I also want to let you know that perspective shifts from lots of different directions. And I'm going to tell you a little story about perspective and a little bit about how to think about this. So the example is that I was with my family, and we were in Cleveland, on the outskirts of Cleveland, and we were going to a restaurant. And some of you may know I'm from Louisiana, and I love jambalaya more than anybody in the world. And so we get there, we get the menu, and it says at the top, special of the day, jambalaya. You know, it's high priced, I'm hungry, I'm ready for this. And so I asked the waitress, I said, is the jambalaya good? And she said, it's the best. And so I order it. And guess what? It wasn't the best. Okay, so in her limited kind of Cleveland way, and in her perspective, the jambalaya there was the best. She had not been to Louisiana. I didn't ask if she'd been to Louisiana, and she tells me, get this. Okay, and I trust her because I so desperately want to hear. I so desperately want to hear that the jambalaya is good. And the reason I draw your attention to that story is that I think that this falls into the perspective of how you might look at the college athletic recruiting process. And what you might see is that you, as a parent, and you need to know this, are you a parent who would just ask you this, hold it close, you don't need to say here, are you one that over-exaggerates the talents of your child and is blinded by how special and wonderful they are and how much you've enjoyed seeing them play? Or are you listening to the negative voices of all the other people who are out there and maybe underestimating the value of your child? And these are things to think about and different perspectives to be aware of. And really, when you come into college athletic recruiting, you're only as good as a college coach thinks you are. So a student will only be recruited based on what the college coach thinks. They have their systems. It's not how good your child may be, and your child may be playing on a team or a series of teams that showcases their talents because they're, like the best jambalaya in Cleveland, they're really shining up in that area. But when you take it on a national level, they may not be shining in the same kind of way. And so what we want to draw you to is the multiple perspectives that you might hear and help you think critically a little bit about those roles. So outside coaches. Often outside coaches, you are paying them money, a lot of money to help your child, to give them some experiences, and those coaches have a vested interest in their athletes going on and playing in college. And they will often market that a lot. They will want to have a hand in it. They'll sell other families on coming to their program based on the information about how many Division I athletes they have going on to college. And we want you to be aware that they are making money off of this. This is their livelihood, and that there are parts of that you have to be aware of. They may also be interested in saying things like, kids go on to this many Division I programs. Well, you need to be asking as you go through this, is a Division I program the best fit for my child? Is it an academic fit for my child? Your children go to a very academic school. So going to a college, maybe where the retention rate is 50%, may not be the best fit. And so we were going to ask you to sort of examine words like Division I is the best and how that may be looked at. Then we want you to know that we think here you have great coaches and great people in the college counseling office that will completely help you with sort of seeing some of this, give you advice on what to do, who know the process. And you'll hear from some coaches today about their work with students and what they know. And our Columbus Academy coaches don't have a vested interest in sort of the money-making revenue of your child going on to college or not. So they are a trusted resource. College counselors here are also a trusted resources for you. Now, I will also say, and I thought about this morning, we've not always gotten it right. We maybe think that a student has great potential and they don't go on and match it in that way. Or we may undersee a kid. That's just the reality of perspective. We all have to check our own bias and perspective as we go through this. And in terms of student-parent, what you want to think there is, what chatter are you hearing from other people and how you evaluate that. And I would say that for parents, really what you want to get into, you want to center yourself as much as possible. Listen to these voices, but not be swayed by one over the other. And also to let this be your child's journey. So we've asked for this, people have asked us for this, a general recruiting timeline. And we would say this is it. And this is, again, general. It doesn't apply to everyone, and it doesn't measure for growth along the way, or if a student has a breakout junior year and what happens from there. but we want you all to have this, and we'll send all these slides afterwards. And we think if we saw I saw a lot of hands raised for ninth graders in the room, and that's great, and it's great for you all to be hearing some of these messages early. And we think that your Columbus Academy coaches are wonderful resources, and you can say to them, I think you can have a conversation. And parents, by the way, this is that point where your child should be having the conversations with the coaches. Your child should be driving this, and all of our coaches are open to meeting with students and talking with them. And you would say, do you think I have the ability to play at the next level? What would I need to do to play at the next level? What things would you think I need to improve on? And where are the ways, and what are the steps to doing that? So this is a little bit of how this unfolds. So recruiting, in terms of early questions that you want to be asking, we're telling you that there's lots of information out there. Ms. Fitzpatrick is going to go into this in detail about technology and the ways you use this and the information that's out there. But we wanted to let you know that there are things that you will know by looking and by learning a little bit about this. So if you look at let's say a tennis roster at University of Florida, which I did last year, I think for men's tennis there were only one or two players from the United States. So what does that tell you? If you were a player from Columbus, Ohio, your chances are very, very narrow to play at University of Florida in the men's tennis realm. If you look at a roster and you see that all of the players on the team are 6'1" and above, and you're 5'7", again, it's data, it's information. And we want to let you know that this is out there, and we'll teach you about some of the ways to look at this. But we also want to let you know that there are the separation between clock sports and everything else. And clock sports will help you get a sense of, clock sports are very, this is swimming and track and field and cross country. You can see the numbers, you can see what the team is recruiting, and that information is readily available. The reason we have up these two examples is also that it's not you have this time, so you're a recruited athlete or not. It's you have this time, and maybe in this example that we have up here, that time may not be good for Kenyan swimming, but you can look and see. You're going to be able to swim at Swanee. So there are differences in different programs, where the colleges rank, where in terms of how they perform at the national level, in how they compete, and if they're ranked really highly and their times are high, you can see that. But this is the plain and simple way to look at that. Okay, did I miss anything with that? No. Okay, and so then the other thing you'll see here is that there's lots of information out there. This is something called SwimCloud, and we know about some of these resources out there that you can search and see. Okay, look at this. These are all the places, the meets that Colby College had, looking at their times. This is work, but it's fun background work, and I will tell you that parents, this is a way that you can help your child. You can go in and know a little bit about this before you get started. Okay, now I'm going to pass it on to Ms. Fitzpatrick, who is going to tell you a little bit more about this.
I've been doing college counseling for 30 years, and I've coached girls lacrosse for 20 years at the college level, the high school level, the middle school level, the youth level. The officiating gets worse as you go down, everybody knows that. And we talk about college athletic recruiting probably every single day in our office, because it's fun, right? You see kids who have worked their entire careers and are thinking, I want to continue to do this. We know from what Jason showed you on the first slide that there are lots of benefits, and I can attest to that. That was part of my college career that I look back upon most fondly. Bridesmaids in my wedding were from my team and my own sisters. That's just how it works. And those of us who played athletics in college, we know the value, and we're glad you're here because we think that means your child wants to play. So some tips and things that can be helpful. So Darnell was talking about looking at rosters and where you can see patterns geographically. So let's talk about field hockey. Field hockey is a big Midwestern sport, so you'll see that's a positive thing. Being from Ohio is a positive thing in field hockey. Lacrosse, if you're looking at a lacrosse program in Maryland and you look at the lacrosse rosters, there aren't a lot of kids from Ohio. They just don't respect Ohio lacrosse. Maybe you're playing on a club team that ups the ante a little bit, but we think there's a lot of things you can learn from a roster geographically. Type of school. If you look at a roster and you say, oh, look at this, 90% of the kids are from independent schools. I think this helps me. I go to an independent school. Physical sizes, Darnell talked a little bit about that. What positions do they need? And let's think about girls lacrosse. If you're a goalie in girls lacrosse and you look at a roster and they have 2 goalies and they're both seniors, you should be celebrating and high-fiving. They need you and they need you badly. If you look at a roster and they have 4 goalies and they're all freshmen, I would move right along. That might be a great school for you, but they just don't need you that particular year. Who's graduating? You know, Darnell talked about looking at your time and your events. We also want you to look at rosters and see what year kids are. If you see GR, that means graduate student. That means the school is pulling heavily from the transfer portal. This is new in the last few years, but the way a school is using the transfer portal, especially at the Division I level, we want you to be aware of that. Completing questionnaires, we're going to show you an example on the next slide, but we want you to know why this is a first step and not just sitting down and emailing coaches. So kids often say, okay, I want to play in college, I'm just going to sit down and mass email the coaches. And you should say to them immediately, have you completed the questionnaire on that school's website? The questionnaire is what the coach wants. They're going to show you exactly what they need from you. Obviously, the name, address, where you go to school. They're going to ask you for your height and your weight. They're going to ask you if it's tennis for your UTR. They're going to ask you for your 40 time in football. They're going to ask you all kinds of things. What position you play. Who's your coach? Who can we contact? But the email is a follow-up step to the questionnaire. Once you fill that questionnaire, that information goes into a database at the college. When you email a coach, it goes to one coach. Assistant coaches are much more likely to email you back, by the way. The head coaches, they sort of pass that off to the assistants. All right, here's what a questionnaire looks like, and here's where you can find it. So we're using Trinity College Women's Squash. So if you're a squash player out there and you think, I'd like to go play at Trinity, the first step is you go to the college's official athletic website and you locate your sport. So we have found women's squash. We click on the women's squash. This is ironic because I don't know the first rule about squash. You probably do. You go to the women's squash page and you click recruits. Sometimes it says more information or fill out the recruiting questionnaire. It will say something like that, or prospective athletes. Then this questionnaire pops up and your child is going to complete that. We have found that the most successfully recruited student athletes will complete between 40 and 50 of these. The funnel is open very wide at the top because it narrows down quickly. The coach will say, you're not good enough, or you will say, I don't really like that school, and by you meaning the kid. So you want to widen that funnel at the top. All divisions, all levels, widen up. Then when you complete that, you'll probably get an automatic reply, but it will also allow you to see who's really coming after me. So if you just continue to get auto replies and nothing personalized, that means they're kind of looking at your child's metric and saying, meh. But if you start to get a lot of individualized, personalized attention, they're coming for you. Okay, some technology do's and don'ts. Huddle accounts, we have those here. You should absolutely be using those. Social media, your kids should be cleaning up their social media first, and then they should be very active on that. You can look at some of our football players. Robin, I think, is going to talk about that. College football coaches still use Twitter, now called X. Probably nobody in this room has that account. Your kids look at you like you're crazy. I'm going to do Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok. If you're a football player, you're going to all of a sudden get a Twitter account because coaches can DM you. There's lots of reasons. Recruiting websites and apps. Let's talk about the value of those. Use the free version. So NCSA is a very popular one. NCSA, do not pay $1 to NCSA. We've not seen any child get better results from the pay version versus the free version. But you also don't want to rely simply on these recruiting services. So there's Sports Recruit, IWLCA and lacrosse has one. You can, if you Google it, all kinds of things will pop up, but don't rely solely on those. ID camps and tournaments. This is very big in the soccer world, and you want to ask follow-up questions. So you'll get mailings that say, pay $800 and come to our soccer ID camp. The very first thing I would ask is, how many other kids are coming? If they say 800 kids, I would run so fast the other way. That means it's a moneymaker for that coach and that college. But if they're inviting 50 kids and they tell you this is where we get our entire recruiting classes from this ID camp and you're invited and you're one of our top 50, go for it if you can get there. College coaches can get your information from the roster at club tournaments, and that's why we think those are so valuable. And you know that if you're playing a club sport. Most importantly is this last bullet, the art of self-recruiting. We are going to teach kids how to put themselves out there, how to fill out the questionnaires, how to respond to emails, how to open up conversations with coaches. If you can dunk a basketball in 7th grade, they're going to find you. If you're 5'5", a little bit on the slower side, I had to work pretty hard. You have to find a college. You can find one where you can play, but if you're not dunking in 7th grade, it's not happening. I think there's a myth, and for a few kids every year that happens. Like they just find you. You just sit back. College coaches find you. The most successfully recruited student athletes at our school put in the work and they put it in early. Okay, I'm going to pass it back to Carla, and then we're going to get to some coaches.
So this is just kind of a wrap up on some of the things that Jen and Darnell were talking about. And if you haven't noticed yet in the conversation, this process varies so widely by sport. So it's really important that you understand the timeline for your sport. So I know Darnell showed you kind of that overall general timeline, but understanding what that timeline looks like for your sport is really important. It's also important to think about where are coaches seeing these athletes. Maybe it's here, but probably it's also going to be at things like some of those ID camps or playing high-level club teams and different club tournaments. Basketball, are you playing on a high-level AAU team? For tennis, they're really looking at that UTR and how many tournaments you play and what that looks like. So there's just, it's putting that knowledge and putting that research in to kind of decide where are coaches finding these kids and how are they knowing. Jen just mentioned the art of self-promotion. This is a lot of work, and you have to keep putting yourself out there, and you have to cast that wide net. And sometimes this is the hardest piece for students. I think we see they just don't really want to talk about how wonderful they are, but we want them to talk about how wonderful they are. So we really do kind of help with that, but understanding that it's putting yourself out there and having students kind of start that piece early is really helpful. The last one up here, that early decision. So if you're talking to a coach and the school that coach works for has early decision, they're going to ask you to apply to the school that way. So you have to be thinking about what that means. So an early decision application means if you're admitted to that school, you're going to that school, right? You can't kind of cast a broader net at that point once you submit that application. So thinking about what that means. This is kind of that early decision. Really kind of talking with your family and talking with your student and talking with the coaches about what that looks like. And don't worry if it doesn't feel in your junior year that those things are happening. Some kids get their best times in their junior year, have their best season. Suddenly they're playing all these tournaments and they're starting to win all of those tournaments. So again, the timeline looks different and the process is a little bit different for everyone. Knowing that we can help you with this in the college counseling office, the athletics department, your coaches here, we're all really able to help you and happy to help you as you're kind of navigating this process, but it's getting the students getting themselves out there and starting this. That's the most important step and the key step in this. Another thing to be thinking about, and I know this was mentioned a few moments ago, I think Jason mentioned it, and I know we've talked a little bit about it already, but leveraging your love of the sport for a school that's a great academic fit for you. So we talked a little bit about that process and what that looks like. And yes, schools are kind of recruiting at all of those levels for their athletes, and it can be a way for you to kind of boost your chances of admission if you're a student athlete that they're really looking for. But don't leverage the love of the sport or the admissions if you don't love the sport, right? So if this is not something that you're wildly passionate about, don't use that as a way to get in, because this is now part of a huge part of your college experience. Thinking about, what experience you're going after. Do you just want to be a member of the team? Do you want playing time? What does that look like? for you. Those are conversations you can have with those coaches. What is the culture of the team? When you make a visit to the school, really kind of diving into that and having your student really think about, are these people I can see myself hanging around with, not only for those 4 years, but as Jen mentioned, for life. These are her friends for life. And so those are really things to kind of thinking about. Are you ready for 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. practices 5 days a week? Is that something that you're looking forward to? These are all really important questions to be asking yourself. But if there's any part of your student who's thinking about athletics, we really want them to pursue that. We really want them to kind of start dipping their toe into it and thinking about it as an option for them. Okay, so now I'm going to pass it along to Jen again.
So we're going to quickly show you 3 sports. I'm going to talk about girls lacrosse, Robin's going to talk about football, and Preston's going to talk about tennis. So in girls lacrosse, if you dig in, these are some of the recruiting, the tournaments where coaches are known to go and recruit. You can look these up, you can see which schools are going to be there. If your kid's on a club team, this is where they're going to play. We know these are the teams in Ohio. You should also know that there are kids in Ohio who join club teams on Long Island. That sounds crazy, but that's the length some people are willing to go to. They'll go to a club team on Long Island and be recruited at the NCAA Division I level. And then there are a series of prospect camps, Lacrosse Matters. How would you know this? If you're a freshman parent and your child plays lacrosse, talk to your coaches. Talk to your club coaches, talk to your coaches here at Columbus Academy and say, where do I need to be seen? What are some teams that I could be trying out for? How can I really get my name out there for women's lacrosse? So we just want to show you this one. Okay, let's pass it over to Robin Miller.
Football is fairly unique because I think we're the only sport that doesn't have like the club aspect, which I personally love. It's just here at school. This is where they play it. This has grown a lot in recent years. All these schools we were in contact with over the last calendar year, most of them came here on campus, or I was in touch with, or we saw them at a recruiting combine. It's extremely beneficial when we have kids looking at colleges and one kid is getting looked at. All those schools then are looking at that kid. So your kids can get eyes on them just because of maybe a teammate, and they all can kind of help one another. I've had coaches come through and they might be looking at player X and they realize that kid is not for them because he's either too good or not good enough, so they kind of move away from him. But then by looking at that film or looking at our recruiting profile, they see player Z, and that just opens up opportunities for everybody. The self-promotion is huge. The kids have to do that. Twitter it's a little ancient, but it's extremely beneficial. The kids have to update their huddle profile, their highlight tapes, which is film, and just advocate for themselves. They need to be in communication with us, not just football, but any sports, so that I know, or the coaches know, what types of schools are you looking at? And then I can go out and talk specifically to those 5 schools, 10 schools, whoever it might be, and get on the same page. I can get a feel for if that kid might be a good fit for them, if that school is interested, or I can help maybe funnel the player to a different school. It could be a better fit for him. The summer camps, the showcase things, they're all money makers to an extent, right? Every school that's hosting it has to make money to pay their staff and everything. And every school wants your player to come to their camp because they're going to make money and it's easier to see them on their own campus. Don't feel pressured to go to 20 different showcases or camps. You can't do it. These kids have other obligations. They need to be kids. But if you can pick 2 or 3, at least for football, I can't speak for other sports, but if you pick 2 or 3 a summer to go to and get in front of coaches and work out, then that can help tremendously. And they just need to tune out the 50 other coaches who want your money and want you to fly out to their campus. Just trying to think.
I would say you're really supportive of kids.
For sure. I want to find opportunities for all of our kids, and we work very closely together to try to find the right home.
Robin being really modest. Robin will, as an example of a coach who will come and meet with us, we'll meet with a family, we'll have the student and the parents in the room. This is an example of how you should be using your coach at Columbus Academy, using your resources here. I have 2 students in the last couple of years I can think of, I won't say their names and their colleges, kid comes in, was thinking I was going to get recruited to Division I, a little bit teary, I'm all the football boys cry, by the way, and then all of a sudden they say, but I still want to play, I love my sport. Robin right away kicks into the ultimate fan mode, and he's out there calling coaches at the next level and saying, I got this player, let me tell you about this player. Please, talk. This is why we want your child to go and talk to a coach, because your resources at Columbus Academy, which by the way you're already paying for, it's called tuition, you should be using these resources. Encourage your child to have that conversation. And sometimes it's hard because you go into a coach and say, I can't believe it. I really thought I was going to get an offer at this school. But we're the ones who can turn around and say, okay, it didn't happen, but what's the next version of that dream, and let's help you to achieve that dream. So I think you're being too modest.
Robin mentioned going to different camps, 2, 3, 4. I think you should also go to a variety of camps. So don't just go to Ohio State or a high level. Go to Ashland University. Go to a smaller school, a bigger school, and then that way, once you get there, you can kind of size yourself up. The kids will size themselves up and say, okay, these all these kids are the same size. They all run about the same speed, and you can tell. You'll start to be able to tell when you belong. And then when you go to these different camps, as parents, talk to other parents and ask lots of questions, because parents will help you, and they'll help you navigate, and they'll tell you which ones are money makers or which ones are legit. So ask a lot of questions, talk to a lot of people, because parents really want to help other parents.
And then I think the last thing I need is, we have a recruiting profile for our players, and it goes by each class, and anyone who's interested in potentially playing is on it. And it has all their bios, it has their stats, it has their height, weight, it has a link to their highlight tape, and then a little description from me. So that gets shared with way more schools than that, all across the country. And that's constantly being updated and everything, and all these different schools can look at kids in just the blink of an eye. But also, again, the kids having their stuff updated, they need to be ready to text it, DM, email it to a school if they're interested in. If they can leverage that technology, it can help them tremendously.
So tennis now is, it's very numbers driven. Back when I played tennis, back in 19, no. I was not dunking in 7th grade, so no college tennis coaches were looking for me for my dunking skills. I had to heavily rely on the self-promotion, and so that included filling out recruitment forms and emailing coaches. And because of that self-promotion, I ended up playing D2, which was nice at the University of Philly. Because it was D2, there were a lot of NCAA forms that you had to fill out to be eligible. And a quick story to that is, we had a very, very large freshman class, and they did not fill out their NCAA forms like I did over the summer. So I was one of the only freshmen that was eligible to play in the first match. So even though I was the worst one on the team, I played in that first match, and I won that match. That ended up being the only match that I played before I retired from tennis. So yes, I am undefeated D2 college athlete. So no, I could not dunk in 7th grade, but I am undefeated. To that point with tennis, the UTR rating for your student now, for your player, is what college tennis coaches look at. The recruitment budget for tennis programs in the United States, if you're not a D1 program, if you're not an Ohio State, if you're not a Michigan, if you're not, they are not coming to watch you play. They're looking at this number. One of the coaches I know from Bowling Green, it's a D1 program, great program, they are looking at the UTR. If your UTR is not high enough, they won't come see you. In order to get that UTR higher, you've got to play tournaments. So USTA tournaments, there's UTR tournaments. All those numbers go into the UTR site, and then you get your UTR rating. If and when, I will note, if and when your student, your child finds a school that is right for them academically, and they think, oh, maybe I can play tennis there, depending on their level, they may get a roster spot. But if you're trying to get recruited specifically for tennis, this is what college coaches are looking at, that UTR. that is the first look that they will have before they come to see you. So it's much different now with UTR levels. They fortunately didn't have that when I was in high school. So my UTR was not of any concern. It was just my drive and dedication to reaching out to coaches. I believe that's all I have. Lovely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Preston. And that was a new part of the program that Jen Fitzpatrick thought of this year, which was fantastic, which was diving into different sports. And I do want to let you know this is a reality. Football, roster sizes very large. It's an American sport. You will see that there are places where kids can play that. Soccer, golf, tennis, baseball, much harder sports to be recruited for. Smaller roster sizes, national, international competition. And some of that will really depend on how much your child rises in terms of ability and skill level to the top of the pack there. So we tell you all of this so that you all are aware of this. And as you think about your child and how this works, you know, lacrosse, really competitive in places on the East Coast, you know, how that looks, how it looks in this level, and learning a little bit about that, the recruiting timeline, and being aware of that. You will see here, and I just want to give a shout out to everyone here, we have a completely dedicated team, and in terms of college counselors, Jen was a college athlete, she's a college coach. Carla is college, I said college coach. I mean, you know, it's college level here in middle school lacrosse, but I wouldn't really call it college level. They're still middle schoolers, so I got that all wrong, and I just want to be honest about that. Carla is a high school coach, and is wonderful, and we think about this all the time. And I can't tell you that I think you just don't have a more experienced or energized staff to work with students through the stages and steps in this process. As Carl mentioned, we have a close relationship with athletics as well, and we are part of that partnership. Things that I would tell you that are out of your control, and some of those are some of the particularities of the particular aspects of sports, of the sport your child plays. And then the other is really how much they sort of maybe recruited places. You can do all that you want for this and keep going and keep trying, and they may or may not be picked up. And then what I would tell you is we have had kids walk onto teams at Michigan, at Duke, who, again, didn't get picked up in that way. They went to colleges, they showed their mettle. Every day, every college player is trying out for their role on the team. Once you get to college, that's not it. I've heard about college coaches seeing a kid playing tennis in the gym and saying, oh my gosh, that kid's amazing. Let me look and see. Again, this like evolving journey. And your job is to support your child and to let them drive this. I will tell you this, that we've seen this over and over again. Children drive this process. Your child may be the best athlete out there, but if they don't have the drive, determination, will from within to do it, they're probably not going to play at college level. This takes waking up at 6 a.m. in the morning, going to lifting, all those different things that we talked to you about. And I think it's really important to recognize those things. So now I've gone rogue, and I often do this in presentations. You know, it's a little bit my learning style. So I want to see, I'm sure there are things I missed. So I'm going to go to Carla and to Jen. Let me see. Oh, yep, some pictures here. Okay, great.
Anything up here that we missed?
Oh, what was I?
Anything up here?
Anything up here that I missed? I think these are some of the things that I just talked about. I didn't advance the slide. That's me. Sorry. And we're going to take individual one-on-one questions at the end. We just like to get everybody out of here at 9 o'clock. So we're going to ask you to come forward and see. And so we're going to show you a few more things. Here are some of our recruiting classes. And here are some other information for parent programs. Okay, so I would say now that I hope you'll give me a round of applause to our speakers. And we have 5 more minutes and we're going to go to the Thank you all so much for coming, and please come forward if you have questions.